The Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill is a documentary about wild parrots. Now, why do I want to talk to filmmaker Judy Irving and the subject of this documentary, Mark Bittner? I'll tell you exactly why. Because I live in Pasadena, California. And guess what we have? Wild parrots. There's some parrots that actually escaped from an aviary in the Pasadena area. And to this day, they are all over Pasadena. When anyone ever comes to visit Pasadena, California, where I live, and you hear the weirdest bird noises you've ever heard, these caulking, they caulk, like these crazy sounds from these birds. It's all from these wild parrots. Well, this documentary is playing in limited release in theaters. Filmmaker Judy Irving is here, along with one of the subjects of the film, Mark Bittner. Welcome to the show, Judy and Mark. I'm Chris. This is Alan. Thank you for joining us on the Film Threat Livecast.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Tell us about this documentary. I was fascinated because I see these birds flying around Pasadena, and I always have to explain when someone will hear some crazy noises. First of all, how did these wild parrots become to be wild? And what made you, Judy, want to make a documentary about this?
Well, Mark, why don't you answer the one about why are they wild, and then I'll get the rest.
Well, sure. It used to be legal to import wild-caught birds out of the, the wilds of South America, Central America, and import them here to be sold as pets. And people were buying wild parrots, and they bite and they scream. And so I think in a lot of cases, people release them just to get rid of them. And in other cases, they escape. The flock that you're talking about, I've seen that flock. It's known as the San Gabriel Valley flock, and there's thousands of them. Wow. And they're red-crowned Amazons for the most part. And actually, I think they're from Mexico, yeah. And they're endangered where they live, but they're flourishing where you live.
Wow. Well, I will say this, they're in no danger here in Pasadena. Yeah. They're everywhere, and they seem to be doing well. Judy, how did you come to this topic for a documentary?
Well, I had been making a couple of short films about birds, and a couple of friends told me, hey, you should make a movie about this guy who feeds the parrots on Telegraph Hill. So I did. I went over there and I saw Mark, and I saw these fabulous red and green, squawky, wild, crazy parrots. I thought, yeah, this might work, So 4.5 years later, I had a movie, and it's having its re-release right now in Los Angeles. It's going to be at the NoHo tonight. I'm going to do Q&A. And then tomorrow night at the Royal, I'll be there to do Q&A as well. And then over the weekend on Saturday and Sunday at the Glendale. It's re-release. The reason for the re-release is because we did a 4K ultra high definition restoration. So the film has been remastered. It's its 20th anniversary. The parrots flying back into theaters 20 years later. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Mark, what made you obsessed with these birds?
Well, I was just fascinated to see wild parrots in San Francisco. It didn't make any sense. And the strangest part of it was that they did fascinate me, and without my trying to, I kept getting closer to them by where I was living. And I'd put out some bird seed to feed some native birds. I just did that for the hell of it. And it ended up attracting the parrots, which shocked me. And I was fascinated by them, so I just started paying attention to them every day. I would feed them. They gradually got used to my presence. And after about 6 months, they started eating out of my hand. And I started learning all the individuals and learning how their community works.
Is this kind of a normal thing for like certain types of, because I feel like we're seeing cases in some, no, but this is what I mean. In some cities, we're seeing like wild animals that don't normally venture where humans live. They're kind of coming from the wild. I used to live in an area where you'd see a mountain lion at least a couple times a year. So
we have coyotes here.
Yeah, coyotes when I lived in Los Feliz, you did not want any small dogs or cats to go out at night because there would be packs of the wild coyotes that would come. And suddenly you didn't have a pet.
Yeah.
So it happens.
The thing is, they are fascinating looking, and they have a lot of personality. And you start to learn that they have individual personalities. And so the story just kept getting more and more interesting to me. And that drew me in.
And so I guess my question is more like, are there other types of wildlife that are venturing to where humans traditionally reside and kind of, I don't mean invading our spaces. I mean, whose space is it, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the skies. But like, is that a thing that happens often? And how do you maintain like the ecosystem so they can survive?
Judy?
Well, yeah, in San Francisco, we have coyotes, we have raccoons, we have the wild parrots, we have the occasional other wild animal. And we have to remember that they were here first in a way. I mean, San Francisco is its own urban landscape, but we came here and we built this city, and the animals are basically just coming back in. And what's neat about the coyotes is that they understand, I think, that they're safe in an urban area. Out in the boondocks, they would get shot at, but nobody messes with them in San Francisco, So they're very comfortable here, and we have to learn how to get along with them rather than trying to think about exterminating them.
We've got some questions from our chat. We've got over 800 people watching us live. Question from Solomon Thornton says, greetings, Sir Judy and Sir Mark. What is your process for doing a documentary?
Well, I love documentaries that are unfolding in the present. I don't like to make movies about historical topics that time has put a stop to. In other words, when I caught up with Mark, he was in the midst of getting to know this flock. He already knew them quite well. He had names for them. He could describe their personalities. And I realized if I could get footage to go with the stories that he tells about these birds, that would make a really interesting film. And in some ways, we were like 20 years ahead of my octopus teacher, because the wild parrots taught Mark about consciousness. They taught him about death. They taught him about all kinds of aspects of existence that you wouldn't expect. And so the film took turns and evolved thematically in ways that I never expected would happen when I started it. And that's what I love about the documentary process. And Mark, I'm going to hand it over to you now, because Mark was a fantastic subject. He did not change in front of the camera. He didn't get self-conscious or anything. And so how was it to have a movie made about you, Mark?
Yeah. Well, to me, it was an art project, and I like art projects. So I was willing to get into it and to do the best I could. The parrots also, by the way, are the official animal of San Francisco now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, we beat the sea lions of Pier 39.
Well, tell us, how can people get more information about the movie?
Well, you can go to the Lemley website and find out about the screenings tonight and tomorrow night at the NoHo and the Royal. They're at 7:30. And then over the weekend starts a 1-week run at the Glendale, and that show is at 5:20. But you can also go to my nonprofit's website, pelicanmedia.org, and Mark has a Facebook page, right, Mark?
Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill.
Right. Yeah. And markbittner.net is his own page. So there's all kinds of ways that you can find out about the flock.
Oh, well, I'm going to share screen. I found your website right here. It's named Pelican Media. There you are. That's amazing. And yeah. one last question for Judy. Did you become a filmmaker to tackle? Were you a filmmaker before, or did you become a filmmaker when you discovered the topic?
I have been making films since 1973. So
wow.
Yeah. So I went to Stanford Film School. I had been making documentaries. I had been kind of in the trenches. None of them had done very well, although they were all worthy. And we had a sudden and welcome and unexpected hit with Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill. When it first came out in 2005, it was out in 500 theaters and it grossed $3.5 million. So this was by far my most successful film.
Can I ask you how the 4K restoration came about?
Yeah, I didn't want the film to fall through the cracks because the streaming platforms were starting to drop standard definition movies, and this one was shot on 16 millimeter and then blown up to 35. So we were one of those films that was going to fall into oblivion if I didn't do something. So thanks to the Academy Film Archive for donating the 4K scan, we were able to restore that photographic scan of 119,500 frames and re-release the film starting tonight in Los Angeles.
Well, congratulations, Judy and Mark, on the film. Go to pelicanmedia.org to check it out and go to one of the screenings this weekend because Judy's in town.
Yep.
And we'll be at some of the screenings. So I'm sure you're going to have some Pasadena residents. They're going to say, I hear these birds all the time in my neighborhood. So, and that's true. I hear them outside my window I actually find it kind of soothing, to be honest.
Do you really? That's good.
I gave a book reading at the South Pasadena Library, and it turned out that thousands of them roosted in the trees right outside the building.
That's crazy.
That was sort of my welcome.
Oh, that's awesome. Judy and Mark, thank you so much for being on the show. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Thank you.